Hello everyone! Today's tutorial is amazingly sweet. We're making sock donuts! All of the materials are listed in the description below, but you'll need a parent or friend to gather those up for you. Kits are also available for purchase, so there's no need to invest in a craft closet just yet. For today's tutorial, I'm going to show you the stitches that we'll be using. The first thing you need to do is, if your string is a little thick, you might need to thin it out. The only reason I say that is it depends on your embellishment. If you're using beads for an embellishment, a needle with a big eye, like this one, won't work. You'll have to test out your embellishments. For example, try to put that bead on, it doesn't come off. Now, if you're using sequins, like I will be using today, this needle might work, but actually it's not. So, can't use a needle with a big eye today, so I'm going to use a needle with a smaller eye, and the eye is the hole where the thread goes through. But this embroidery floss is too thick. So before I begin any stitches, I'm going to have to separate this embroidery floss, or if you have thinner thread, you can use that. But I'm using embroidery floss. Embroidery floss comes in 6 strands, and I'm actually going to split it in half. So I'm going to grab 3 and grab the other 3 and gently pull it apart. Now it gets a little twisted, so you have to let those twists out as you pull. Could get a little tangled if it's your first time doing it. I'm having some trouble, but there we go. So we'll use this another time. So now my thread is a little bit smaller, and it will make it through the eye of my needle a lot easier. So you need to thread your needle, and even now it can be a little tricky. So my threads are not lining up, so I'm actually going to trim it, which will make it a lot easier to get through the eye of the needle. See, just like that, perfect. And it's on there. All right, now that our needle is threaded, we need to tie a knot at the end of our thread. To do that, you need to make a loop or a circle. You're gonna tuck those ends in through the loop and pull. Now I like to double knot mine, so I'm going to do it again. Make a loop, tuck those ends in the hole, and pull. And I try to get them to line up right on top of each other. Now before I begin to teach you the stitches, I want to show you something with your needle. If you just hold onto the needle and you pull your thread through your project, your thread's eventually going to come off that needle. And it's not fun to rethread your needle all the time. So when sewing, I like to have a little grip. See my 2 fingers? They're kind of gripping. My index and thumb are holding onto the needle, and my pinky and ring finger are gripping the thread. So as you can see, when I pull, the thread's not going anywhere. It's staying right on the needle. All right. So for today's tutorial, the donut, we will be doing a whip stitch, and I'm going to show you with 2 layers because a whip stitch is going to go around 2 layers, and I always start from the back side, and that's to hide the ends of your threads. So you're going to bring your needle, you're going to punch up from the back. See how I'm gripping that thread, and I'm going to pull it all the way through. And a whip stitch always comes from the same direction. So I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to punch back up through the bottom and pull all the way through. And again, from the bottom up to the top and back through. Now you could do it from top and keep going from the top. That works well. I just like to go from the bottom, or whichever side hides my thread, which in the tutorial I will show you where to always start. But let's do a few more stitches. Punch up from the bottom and pull
all the way through. Like that. Now that's really the only stitch you're going to be doing today. However, we are going to add embellishment. So for that, wherever you're starting on your piece, you will punch up and pull through. And then, depending on your embellishment, for a sequin, it's got a nice little hole there. Tuck that through and pull it down. And we're just going to kind of go off to the side and punch our needle back down. And it'll hold it in place. With sequins though, I like to punch back up, try to find that hole and punch back up through, and then punch back down on another side. It will secure it better, so it doesn't flop around. If you're doing a bead, same thing, punch up from the back, find your bead. I didn't test this one to see if it'll go through the needle, and it does. And it comes down, and with a bead, you'll just want to bring your needle, see how it comes up right there. You're just going to go right down, right next to it, and pull through. If you don't have a bead or don't have a sequin, you can actually just use thread to embellish. So watch what I do for that. I'm going to punch up, and I'm just going to go about this far over and punch back down. You put enough of these, I'm going to punch up again. I'm going to go a different direction. I'm going to go this way. You do it again, right here. And we'll go this way. You start to do it, they start to look like little sprinkles. So you have that option as well. Now when pulling, you don't want to pull really hard or everything will get scrunched up. All right, so that is how we do the whip stitch. And there's a few options for embellishing your sock donut. All right, now that you've practiced some of your stitches, we can begin the sock donut tutorial. Materials you need for this tutorial are a sock. A longer one is better, it'll give you more full donut. And think about the colors too, what color you want your donut to be. You need a piece of felt. This felt is about 4 inches by 4 inches. Some coordinating thread. I'm using embroidery floss. A needle that will fit whatever embellishment that you want. And for today's tutorial, I'm using sequins. So I've already tested, and my sequins will thread right through my needle. You also need a pair of scissors. A good pair, because you're going to be cutting felt and you're going to be cutting the sock. All right, so we are going to take these items and set them aside. The first thing we need to do is we are going to actually roll up our donut. So what you need to do is take your scissors and you're going to cut off the toe of your sock. Now what's great about this is if you have socks that have missing partners, you can repurpose them into sock donuts. Now for this sock, I'm going to turn it inside out because I don't like what this looks like. I like the outside, I think it's pretty. So I'm going to turn my sock inside out, like so. And now we're going to roll our donut. So you're going to start at the toe, and you're just going to start to roll it up on itself, real slow, like this. And you're going to go all the way till you get to the top. And I'm just working it in there. It might take a couple tries. I've done this before, so I have practiced. You're just going to keep rolling. Eventually, once it starts to fill out, it makes it a lot easier to roll. Keep rolling and keep rolling until you have something that looks like this. Now, if you have long hair, this actually works great to make nice sock donut buns for your hair. But we're not doing that today. We are making one of these. Fun little sock donut. All right. Once you've got this, you can set it off to the side. Next, you will need your piece of felt. And we're gonna lay it on top of our donut to kind of give us an idea of how we want to cut it. And we are just gonna cut just like a big blob. A squiggly blob, because this is going to be your icing. You can pre-draw it if you want, or if you want, you can just go for it. So I'm just gonna go for it. I want round ends, and I'm gonna go squiggle, squiggle, like this. You always can cut it smaller, so I suggest starting big. It's almost like a cloud, too. And come back around, and right there. So there's my blob. I'm going to take my donut and I'm going to kind of see what it looks like on top. And I like that. And you really want to be covering this seam where the sock comes up. Now you could leave it like this, but for this tutorial, I'm going to actually cut a hole out. So to do that, I'm just going to fold this in half, and I'm just going to cut a half circle. Always start small. You can always make it bigger. Make it too big, then you have to start over. There we go. And there it is. It's already looking like a donut. So for now, I'm actually going to put this aside again, and we are going to stitch the edge of our sock to here so that it doesn't unravel. Now you could stitch it, or if you have a friend or a parent, they can help you hot glue it. That's the easy way out, but we are going to stitch today. And because this is hidden, I'm going to just use my white thread. And I'm going to unroll it, and you don't want it to be too long. The longer it is, the more tangled it gets. And cut. And as I showed in our tutorial earlier, my needle has a small eye, a small hole. So I'm going to separate my embroidery floss into 3 strands. And hold on to this 3 extra string because you will want to use it later. Now we're going to thread the needle, and just to be safe, I'm just going to trim it. They don't quite line up. Now if you have a needle threader, those work great. I do not have one with me right now, so I'm going to attempt to thread this needle without one. Oop. Oh, I only got on one. See that? Gotta try again. Sometimes if you twist those threads together, it will help. And I got it. There we go. And we're going to tie a knot at the very end. Again, a circle or a loop, and tuck those ends through, and pull, double knot it, circle or a loop, tuck those ends, and try to line up the knot, like so. All right, now we can begin sewing. Now this whole thing is going to be hidden by our felt, so you can begin wherever. I'm going to begin on the inside, so I'm going to call this part the inside and this part the outside. So I'm going to begin on the inside, and I'm going to punch my needle through, and it's actually going to come from the inside to the outside, like that. And I am going to do my whip stitch, which is going to always punch from this side, from the inside. like this. And because these stitches aren't seen, they don't have to be even. We're just making sure that it doesn't come undone. See, I did a pretty big stitch there. You could do decently sized stitches for this. And you're just going to work your way all the way down, all the way around the donut. So I will meet up with you when you get there. Okay, so I have made it all the way around my donut, and I want to tie off this thread. So we're going to punch through again. And you see that loop? We're going to stick our needle through that loop. And then we're going to pull. It creates like a little knot. And we're going to punch through again, through the loop, and pull a knot. Now we could cut it here, but I want to show you a fun trick. We're going to hide this even better. So you're going to take your needle, you're going to just punch it anywhere near where your thread is coming out and go all the way to the back and pull it through. You're going to pull a little extra hard. You're going to take your scissors and you're going to snip real close to that donut, like so. And then that thread is going to hide itself inside your sock donut. There we are. So we can put this off to the side now, because next we're going to do the embellishment for our icing. Now I really don't have enough thread here, so I'm just going to take this off and discard it. And I'm going to rethread it with my other piece. So I'm going to trim again and rethread my needle. Doesn't want to work with me today. Nope. There we go. And I always put my thread really close to my fingers. You'd notice that. I don't put it out here because trying to thread through it, you're just going to bounce it around. If you put it really close down in between your fingers, you have more control of holding it in place. All right, so we've got our needle threaded. We're going to need to tie our end knot again, double knot, around the loop, through the hole, and pull twice. And we're ready. So I decided for my embellishment, I'm going to do sequins. And because I have a green sock, I like the idea of green and silver sequins. So I'm going to pull a few of those out to show you how I add them. All right, so we're going to come up from the back side because we don't want our tail to be seen. We're going to pull it through. Pull it all the way through. You don't want to leave a big tail like that. Not yet. And you're going to find your first sequin or bead, whatever you're using. Thread that through. And I'm going to punch down just on the side of it. Now, like I said in the tutorial showing you how the stitches, with sequins, I like to try to find that hole and come back up. Sometimes you just gotta wiggle it around and you'll find the hole, like so. Otherwise, it'll be a little floppy. And I'm gonna punch down on the other side, like that. And so I'm gonna add the rest of my sequins, and I will catch up with you then. So I've got all my sequins sewn on. And that's what the back, I'm not sure you can kind of see how the strings kind of all go around. And you notice I didn't pull them too tight so nothing's scrunched up. That's what the front looks like. So now my thread's getting short. I am actually going to tie it off. So I'm going to turn it to the back and I'm going to just go through that loop right next to it, pull through, creates that loop, stick your needle through it and pull. Pull through the loop, see the little loop, stick your needle through it and pull. I'm going to trim this off. All right, so we have our top, we have our bottom, and now it's time to attach them together. Stick my needle in there so I don't lose it. So I'm going to need more thread. So I'm going to need to do the process again. Cut my thread and I'm going to separate it into 2 strands, 3 and 3. Now at this point, if you have thicker thread and you have a needle that works with it, you could actually use this needle because we're not going through the embellishments anymore, but I'm going to use the same needle. It's being tricky again. All right, I'm going to need that later, so I'm going to put it to the side. Trim my ends and thread this needle again. Do it? I did. All right. First time. So again, tie your knot. Double knot it. And then we can begin. So we need to sew our icing to our donut. So find where you want it to go and hold the donut and the icing in your hand. You're always sewing with your dominant hand. I am left-handed, so this might look opposite of what you're doing. And I'm going to come up from the sock in order to hide my stitches. So I am going to, let me just take this off. I'm going to bring my thread up through the sock. Now it's going to get hidden when I put my icing over it. So I'm going to bring my needle now up through my icing. Like that. And this is again our whip stitch. We're going to come down through the sock, up through the icing. See that? Down in through the sock and then up through the icing. And pull. And we're going to do that all the way around. I'll do a few more stitches before I go into speed mode here. Go into the sock, up through the icing, and pull. In through the sock, up through the icing. We're whipping it around. In through the sock, up through the icing, and pull. All right. So I'll meet you when I get to the finish line. as you can see, I got this knot, and I'm not sure I can get it undone. So this could happen to you. Let me see if I just gently pull. It's not wanting to come out. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna keep my needle in there, and there's enough here. I'm actually going to cut it like that. And I'm actually gonna just tie a knot. Just a square knot. So over, kind of small, so over, pull through the loop. And I got these extra strings, so I'm gonna trim them down just slightly. And since I'm still sewing, I'm barely, almost done, I'm gonna tuck them up in there and they'll never be seen. And then I'm gonna finish. So, finish this up, and then I'll show you the next part. Now you noticed in the fast video, I needed to change my thread. So I did exactly the same thing as when I started. I hid the strings and then I kept going. So I actually have a little bit of thread here and I'm going to use it. Otherwise you would tie this off like we did before, punch it through and clip it. But instead I'm going to punch through my donut and I'm going to come up right on the inside. You see it right there? Pull it through. I don't pull too hard or you'll scrunch it. And that gets me started to do my whip stitch in the center. So for the whip stitch in the center, you're gonna come up through the green and go down through the white. Like so. See how it's going down through the white and coming out in the green? You might have to push it up with your other finger and pull through. And just be careful of your embellishments. Sometimes these can get wrapped around if you're not careful. So again, I'm gonna punch down through the white and it's gonna come up through the sock. Down through the white, up through the sock. And we're almost there. We're almost finished. So I will meet you at the end. To the end and I'm so close without running out of thread. So I'm going to tie this off like I have with my other. I'm going to come around and punch through. And there, I should have enough to make a loop. We'll see. Gentle so we don't pull that loop through. And I'm gonna go through it. Oh, I have enough. Just barely. And pull, and I'm gonna do it one more time. Punch through. Pull my needle. I'm gonna hold that loop so I don't lose it. And stick my needle through it. See how I'm holding my strings so they don't come off my needle. And pull. And then to finish, we're gonna just punch it through the donut, through the other side, and pull through. Trim those threads, and there you have a sock donut. Now you can use these. Here's my other one I did with beads. You can use these for play. They're great in a play kitchen or just fun for decoration. But since you're learning to sew, these are great as brand new pin cushions for all your pins and needles. So I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to next time. Until then, see you later.